Good morning, friends. In a recent post, I was just talking about one of my favorite activities for my morning routine, for a productive morning, and for a day that feels good in my body and the way I move. Today, I'm modeling what not to do. I've been awake for several hours, and for a sizable number of them, I have been at my desk reading clinical research. I feel like trash. I feel like absolute garbage. Even my dogs are over in their bed just like, turn the light off if all we're gonna do is sleep. Like, we're all pretty miserable. We didn't get much sleep, but this has not helped how we feel. So I need to put on some music and get some circulation going. But what I wanted to come and tell you is that the research is something I ultimately want to share with you. A big part of why I've disappeared from, it's not why I disappeared from YouTube a year and a half ago, but it's one of the things that's kept me off of YouTube for this at least a year, and that has been chronic foot pain. Mysterious, totally perplexing, mystifying, honestly, and devastating foot pain. And it's devastating to me not only because a big part of my presence and the content I like to share is about movement wellness through foot health, and I know a lot about the feet. I should be able to cure my own, right? But what I didn't know, and that's a big part of the story that I hope to share, is that I was throwing the kitchen sink at my feet in terms of podiatry-oriented remedies to get out of the chronic pain. The chronic pain, I think you could describe most easily as something like a plantar fasciitis, in terms of a connective tissue, burning, bruising, deep pain in the feet. But it was not classic plantar fasciitis. It developed into sort of a plantar fasciitis, or an irritation of the plantar fascia, right? An inflammation of the connective tissue in the feet, but that can kind of sound kind of like it's almost like rheumatoid or something. So it's hard to put in a box what my symptoms are, and I can't feel other people's symptoms. So I don't want to pretend that I was feeling something like plantar fasciitis, but plantar fasciitis sure does affect a lot of people. I even have a video of my own from over a year ago. It's on YouTube, but it's a private video still because it's me on a rant about all of the trash content. It's fucking gaslighting people with plantar fasciitis about what to do for their feet. And I do intend to post it, even though it's pretty ranty. It's kind of crazy. But I didn't want to post it until I had a solution of what to do when you have this pain. And then for this whole year, it's almost felt karmic, to be honest. I've had unexplained, or it's not that the pain is unexplained, but not being able to get out of it has been unexplained, because I've been trying everything and doing everything really diligently. And so the research I'm doing is because what I'm finding is that the underlying, and I posted a little bit about this in a teaser video showing a dog bite. I'm like, what the hell? But what I actually have had is chronically low hormones, okay? Sex hormones, most importantly for my body, my female body. Wokeness, careful, just like PTSD from like woke talk, right? But anyway, in my female body, I have chronically low estrogen. And I also might have chronically low testosterone as well. And there's reasons for that in my personal and medical history, and there's actually been a lot of symptoms of it as well, which really pisses me off because I have pretty clear symptoms, one of which I'm showing off right here, which is these widow peaks, right, that I've had since I was like in my 20s, they were forming. I just figured it was because I always tie my hair back. Well, sure, but that specific distribution of the hair removal at the corners, I'm just not, I don't want to call it vain because it does bother me, but I never looked into it, and I never knew that like the pattern in which you lose hair is related to your sex hormones, although male pattern baldness should have given that away, but it's not something I was thinking a lot about, again, as a woman in my 20s and 30s, right? Not on my radar, but that expression exists for a reason. but also other things that I will absolutely share that are a little bit more personal, but I want to share them because they affect a lot of people, and they are red flags, and they're not being picked up as red flags that are going to create connective tissue problems and pain for you. They get picked up for fertility stuff, and not to dismiss that, that's an important part of a lot of people's lives, but not mine. So I was not, perceiving that I had chronically low sex hormones. And I had no reason, again, if you don't have a big basis of comparison, you don't realize that, like, when your Achilles injury that you get in your 30s takes 5 years or more to be symptom free. That's a red flag, because you're told that, oh yeah, Achilles injury, especially after 30, very common, and it's a pain in the butt to heal because it's such a large tendon, and it gets such little blood flow. So you're told it's going to take a long time. I didn't realize that was probably a red flag, that it was taking too long, and I never saw anyone for it, because what are they going to do? So I was just, and I don't actually I have zero confidence that they would have made this connection, because that's how piss poor the literature and knowledge is. Like, there were plenty of symptoms that I did have that I was going to MDs about, and none of them flagged that I had a connective tissue issue or a low hormone issue. And the things I was going for, like reproductive health, nature type things, were much more dead on, would have put them right in the ballpark bullseye zone of, like, oh, we should test her hormones. My Achilles tendon, I have no hope that anyone would have caught that except maybe me. And that's why I'm telling you about this now, because the reason I made that rant video about plantar fasciitis is because there's so many effing videos about it, because it's a problem so many people deal with. And I absolutely am going to circle back with what I think will be a better, game-changing, level up the instruction about what to do if you actually have plantar fasciitis, from the typical reasons people get it, which is like collapsing arches and stress and weak feet, right? Demuscled feet that then take a lot of stress on the connective tissue. My symptoms were from an acute trauma to the connective tissue of my feet that then I didn't rest and didn't heal. But in my body's healing process, it was laying down shit collagen and connective tissue because of my deficiency in hormones. And I have found, even in, like, I think it's the British Medical Journal, okay, not some conspiracy rag, not some blog post on, the internet with no references, but a bunch of claims. Okay, and this article, I think, is from 2016. They actually are describing, like, the conclusion that they get to is that chronic tendinitis and tendinopathy, right? So people who have tendinitis, whether it's shoulder issues or feet or knees, wherever you have inflamed chronic connective tissue pain at a joint, right? Which is a little different from, like, an osteoarthritic pain at the joint, right? That's a degradation of your of your cartilage. Tendinopathy is chronic wear and an inability for your body to heal its tendinous, which carries over a little bit, like ligament is somewhere in between cartilage and tendon, right? Like, all these connective tissues do not operate equally. But this article is specifically about tendinopathy, tendon tissue, thinking that one of the underlying bases for which it becomes chronic and people cannot heal, and it's such a rampant problem, is hormone levels. And they were describing it as like a sleeper issue. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. It's sleeper. It's sleeper, all right. So the good news is, in the course of the year, I've experimented in my own body with a lot of traditional plantar fasciitis therapies. So I've put them into practice, and I have a pretty good collection of things that I think absolutely should work and would work for someone with plantar fasciitis pain that derives from more classic, typical provocation, right? Like the collapsed arches and the weak feet type of thing. I have high arches, rigid feet. It's hard. You have to force. Like, if the chiropractor tries to adjust my feet, You know, I don't know if you've ever had that done, but I'm like, please don't, because it feels like they're gonna break my foot. They're stressing the bones and the joints so hard to try to get my arch to move. You have to try to get my arch to move. It doesn't collapse on its own. Okay, so I do not have a foot that lends itself to typical plantar fasciitis pain, and I have not had it. I've had a lot of other foot issues in my life, but that is not one I've had. And I also have feet that I have strengthened for like a decade almost, really consistently for like 5 years, but over the course of a decade of dancing barefoot and things, they really became very strong, such that at the time when I had this acute traumatic injury to my fascia, I was dancing barefoot like hard, leaping on one foot, like high impact, not ballet, like high impact folkloric dance, we'll call it, right? You could almost think of like doing aerobics, for lack of a better equivalent physically, barefoot, okay? Jumping, pounding, jumping jacks, imagine all that barefoot, right? And very sweet. One of my very first videos on YouTube is me in like a crouched squat position showing off shoes barefoot in that squat position for like an hour because I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it because my feet were strong. So what I'm saying is not to go on and on about that, but if your feet are that strong, you know, you shouldn't have foot pain. Shouldn't. And so I cannot tell you, I've had some dark moments, friends, just thinking, will I ever be able to walk without pain? Stand without pain, let alone dance without pain? And that's the darkest one for me because, I mean, I have dogs and now I need to walk. I have to walk. And as a human, I want to walk. I love walking. But it's like, what I really care about is dance. So to not be able to potentially never dance again, even with shoes, I'll wear whatever I need to put on my feet. I'll do whatever I need to do to compensate for not being barefoot. That's not the priority. But I couldn't even stand without pain. I couldn't wash dishes without pain. I can't show you this right now because of the way I'm holding my phone, but I couldn't lie on my back with my knees bent and my feet on the ground. Can you picture that? Like imagine you're going to do like crunches. Don't do that. Don't. But anyway, lie on your back, feet on the ground, knees bent. Sunbathing pose, right? Just chill. The angle of the floor into the base of my foot, just from the weight of my leg while I was lying on my back, excruciating. Right? Super mysterious shit. So I've been experimenting now with some supplements and making some changes in my nutrition. I don't think that was a major driver, but there were some low-hanging fruit changes I had available to me to make, and I've made them, and they're helping. I think the biggest thing is going to be increasing my endogenous hormone production, especially estrogen, but also testosterone, because they have a mutually enforcing relationship of tensile strength and stiffness, which is a whole other thing we can go into because the nature of injury distribution between men and women is really different because of a lot of things I'm learning about the way that biological male and female bodies build and replace, and our connective tissue not the same. I mean, it's kind of obvious when you're like, well, women deliver babies, so yeah, our connective tissue has to do some pretty different type of stuff. But it goes beyond that in terms of the way our bodies respond to like physical exercise. And because I say that because one of the traditional ways to build and fortify connective tissues, in particular tendons, is to stress them, to eccentrically stress them. But sure enough, while men's tendons will be really stimulated, like 70% upregulation of replacing and turning over of the cells in the tendons, which is a good thing when you want your tendon to heal, after exercise exposure. It's almost like null in women. I don't remember if it's null or if it was just like, yeah, nothing happens in that first 72 hours, or it's like 20% versus 70%. It's a real difference. And then you get into like different parts of the woman's menstrual cycle, right? Because our hormones are going all over the place, and that is very clearly seen in studies for young athletes and ACL injuries and things like that. And then, of course, we know about age-related flat foot, right, and age-related arch collapse in menopausal women as a result of their hormones lowering, right? As a result of exactly what I'm experiencing, but I'm 45, and I don't, perimenopause is sort of a weird category to be in. I think I'm more pre that still, because I still have regular periods, right? So my hormones are just too fucking low, and they've probably been too low for a long time. Like I said, I have other symptoms, and I have medical history, right? I took oral birth control for a long, long time. And because I was never interested in becoming pregnant, I never went to fertility counseling, where they might have told me, and I know they tell people this because I was talking to a young woman who is looking to get pregnant and had been on oral contraception, like so many women. And apparently they coach them specifically, oh yeah, your hormone levels, your endogenous hormone levels might be suppressed from having taken oral contraception, right? And you need to get it up if you want. You need to increase your level of hormones if you want to get pregnant. And because I was never looking to get pregnant, it was never brought to my attention that my personal production of these hormones would be suppressed as a result of having taken oral contraception in the past. Now, it makes perfect sense. But the only reason I put those two things together is because I was watching Mike Mutzel from High Intensity Health, who I've watched for a long time. I learned a ton from. He used to travel around the country and do amazing interviews, and he still does them. And he's got a great channel with lots of good content. Really appreciate his contribution to YouTube. But he confesses, he is very open about this, that when he was in his 20s probably, when he was much younger, he's in his 40s now, in his 20s he did at least a cycle or some I don't know how it's administered, of testosterone, right, for performance enhancement as a high-level cyclist. And he has described how that has led now to having compromised endogenous production of testosterone, right? His body's self-creating testosterone, its mechanism for creating is suppressed. And that made me think, okay, I'm combining what I'm learning about age-related arch collapse and the effect on connective tissue in women with menopause. So when hormones drop, they're getting foot pain. They're having symptoms in their feet. No one describes that as painful. They say the arches collapse. They don't tell you it fucking hurts. It's like really, really painful, such that I would put an arch support in my shoe thinking, let's just try it, and the pressure of my foot against the arch support hurt. So I don't know what I'm going to do when I get to menopause. I'm actually extremely scared. I'm scared, but we'll cross that bridge together. And I'm just going to wait. I'm going to deal with today, one step at a time. But I'm sure it's extremely painful for women going through menopause who have chronic foot pain. It's not just a what's the word I'm looking for? Positional thing of their foot. Oh, the arch is high and then it's low. No, it's painful. So I combined what I know about the tendency for there to be arch collapse in postmenopausal women as a result of lowering hormones, and what I learned from Mike Mutzel about potential suppression of endogenous hormones, even in one's, for a man in that instance, but in his 40s, and I'm in my 40s, and I was like, I think what has happened is I chronically lowered my endogenous sex hormone production level, especially estrogen. And now, and it probably was an issue for me throughout my life, and I've had symptoms throughout my life, but now that I'm going to be 46 in January, okay, so I'm 45 and a half. I'm at a point where the general trajectory of my hormones lowering with age, combined with the fact that they've been chronically low, they're so low my feet can't heal. And the connective tissue that they're laying down is painful. Like, that was what I learned from the dog bite bruise, or the dog bite story, because the dog bite was actually very superficial. It didn't even get top and bottom teeth in, so there was no real bruising and compression. It was just bottom teeth and just nicked me. And even with that, the scar tissue around that, the collagen that formed around that, was both really pronounced. So not what that tells me is that not good, clean, organized collagen. Okay, it's very. We'll talk. But it's usually referred to as like probably predominantly type 3 collagen versus type 1 collagen, right? Just disorganized, not very strong, fiber direction, not coordinated, and it's painful. Pushing on that scar tissue hurt. And if you watch that video, that also is when it occurred to me that, okay. So if my body made hard, painful scar tissue as a result of a little nick, a superficial nick in the skin, and the injury I created in the bottom of my foot was a pretty profound acute trauma to my plantar fascia at a moment when it was already inflamed, and I just probably took it way over its threshold for stress. I'll talk more when I tell you the full story about how I injured my feet, because that's so fucking ridiculous. It deserves its own video. But what I learned from that moment was, okay, my body is laying down, disorganized, by definition, inflamed, big, puffy, fluffy collagen that also hurts. It itself hurts. Pushing on it hurts. So that's what's going on in my feet. And that's when I've gone on this deep dive to figure out how to support my own endogenous hormone production. So I'll be back. And so today's research was mostly, honestly, going through. You've seen my crazy apartment. I have a bunch of herbs and stuff. I'm a witch, right? So my whole life I've loved herbal medicine, and I drink a bunch of tea. I drink coffee and stuff too, but I love tea. I love herbs. I've got like a whole closet in my garage of like herbs, bulk herbs, right? It's a hobby, but it's also something I've done to support my body. But I've been going through all the teas, all the supplements, everything I take and eat. So even like, looking at ginger tea that I love, for a perfect example, right? Yeah. And looking into the research around its hormone, are there phytoestrogens? Is it anti-estrogenic? What is it doing to my hormones? So that I have a big picture of, okay, while I undertake, basically I'm taking DHEA. I'm 2 weeks into taking it. So that's why I don't want to make a big video about it, because that's not enough information for me to have a real leg to stand on in terms of sharing. But just for transparency, I am so excited about it. I wish I could drink the whole fucking bottle. I wish I could just drink it, be done, be like, can this make my feet better? Because it's making a big difference. Again, that will be its own video, as well as all of the collagen and vitamin C and the supplements that I'm taking. Is just, I don't know what's working, what's not, because I'm not doing clinical research. I don't have time for that. I'm just try it all, and we'll eliminate things that are, potentially not big players going forward. But right now, I don't care what it is that works. I just want success. So I'm just doing everything at once. I'll tell you later. But yeah, it's mostly vitamin C and collagen, manganese, silica. Those are the big ones. We'll talk. What else was I going to say? So today, that's what I was doing. It's a bunch of research about just getting a big picture of the impact on my hormones of things I eat. And I'm going to probably have to part with some of them. I'll probably taper back some of the ginger tea. I've been pounding ginger tea. I just love ginger tea. So it's what I drink, since COVID. I just get big bags of ginger root and drink it all day long. And I'm it's been a rough year with my feet. And I don't know if because apparently, according to the studies, there is an potentially anti-estrogenic effect of ginger. And I'm it doesn't have to be causal. I'm just working with like, okay, I'm seeing an association, I'm probably going to back off. But it is in order to set my body up for success to make the most of the DHEA I'm taking, which is supposed to help my endogenous production of both testosterone and estrogen. And I'm happy to have both. Hold on, let me say something about that. And in the meantime, just get a better lay of the land of what other things I'm consuming are doing to my hormone profile, potentially doing, right? It's not even worth doing the blood work because I'm like, the symptoms are so clear. And I don't care what my levels are, I care what my symptoms are. Testosterone and estrogen. What I was started to say earlier, and then I know I went off the bandwagon with young athletes and women and connective tissue healing differently, or just the treatment of connective tissue by the male and female bodies differently, right? Different. What I want to say is that estrogen has receptors that are supposed to help make tendons in particular. I don't want to say all just connective tissue because it's not the same. There's connective tissue in bone, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, right? And beyond, in the fascia of the body, right? Viscera of the body, the skin, right? All of these things are different types of connective tissue, and they respond to both hormones and nutrients differently, right? Tendon tissue, I'm finding, is a little bit closer to like the connective tissue in your skin than your joints, for example. Okay, so it's closer to skin than it is to cartilage. Okay, I'm making that in face because you see all these supplements for things about like skin and anti-wrinkle supplements and like skin, hair, and nails. Well, fucking say tendons on there too. Anyway, no medical advice, you know the deal. I'm just like putting it out there that, hey, no one talks about this. No one talks about nutrition as part of supporting our connective tissue for like joints. It's all, you know, the aesthetic. Sorry, that has me thinking other things about menopause. You know, some of the things that have led me to understand that my symptoms are a sign of low estrogen are because they parallel things like wrinkles on the skin as a complaint in estrogen. But yeah, they don't talk about tendons. Anyway, testosterone helps make connective tissue more stiff, and estrogen helps make quality stretchy. Okay, so as opposed to the stuff I'm making, which is not quality stretchy, and it's painful and disorganized connective tissue, I want to upgrade my connective tissue to high performance, estrogen fortified connective tissue. But I also want the testosterone to give it tensile strength. I don't want it to just be too stretchy. And for women watching, you know that when your connective tissue is really stretchy at certain points of your cycle, maybe you've like done a yoga class, or you're like me and you used to straddle stretch and like just do basic stretches at the end of the day and be like, wow, I feel so limber. Okay, that's great. But it's also when you're extremely prone to injury because of the laxity that is induced by these hormones. So on the one hand, I want estrogen to make good quality connective tissue, but I don't want to just be super loosey-goose and limber. When you see that, actually, that gets back to the studies on young female athletes and when they have the highest proclivity to do things like tear an ACL, which is a very common injury for especially young female athletes. So, and male athletes, but it's more common in women, and it's because of the nature of our connective tissue. And actually, that was I'll end here because I know I'm super rambling, guys. But hopefully this is useful and interesting. There's bits in here for people. That was an interesting piece that article was describing, was that men, for example, pull muscles and women rip connective tissue. And that is in part because men's connective tissue is so strong that it holds the line. And what gets torn is their muscle. Now that we have connective tissue in our muscle, but the muscle is the weak link. So you got all the groin pulls and the hamstring pulls. And I'm not saying this is, of course, not black and white. Like, women absolutely pull muscles. But the more common prevalence for women athletes is ACL tears and that's the biggest one that comes to mind. Patella injuries, and Achilles apparently is more common as well at certain ages, I believe. Don't quote me, but I think that was one of the things that was said in the article. And things like frozen shoulder in an older population, much more common. I think it's like 70% of frozen shoulder incidences are in women. So look up frozen shoulder. We'll talk about frozen shoulder. But again, it's a connective tissue issue. And it's because our weak link is our connective tissue. And ACLs is a ligament, right? Anterior cruciate ligament. It's not a tendon, but nonetheless, that was the point that the article was making, because we're talking about the spectrum, right? Our connective tissue tends to be our weak link. And they actually showed a really frustrating graph in that study in terms of the time of the menstrual cycle when women were experiencing those tears, and for them it was when their estrogen was really high. It's at the peaks of estrogen, the first half of the cycle, and a little blip at the second half of the cycle. So again, not to confuse, because I, as a 40, almost 6-year-old, want more estrogen because I need it to heal my connective tissue. And then I also want a good balance between testosterone and estrogen so that the quality of that connective tissue is both healthy and stretchy, the way it's supposed to be, and also strong. Healthy, stretchy, strong, with good tensile strength. That's what I'm banking on, friends. So you're here 30 minutes in. You're here as my experiment starts, because truly I began taking DHEA 2 weeks ago. I was taking 12.5 milligrams a day, starting super conservative. It's tested at 25 and 50 milligrams a day in women, and I'll take as much as I can without, and honestly, I'm not even worried about some of the side effects. I'm like, I grow some facial hair. Can I dance? That's really how I feel, friends. It's truly how I feel. But not to make light of it. I obviously don't want to dysregulate my body further, okay? But I am just increased to 25 milligrams yesterday. All my effects so far have been excellent. I have had no negative side effects. I feel great. And so I'm going to continue to take it. And my feet feel good, relatively. I'm not in the clear. I'm not in the clear. But I am, they're, God, especially given the fact that I didn't get hardly any sleep last night. Usually after a night of very little sleep and very little rest to my feet, they would be sore as shit. And they're not, right? They're not great. I don't have a normal, casual, comfortable walk yet. I still have to be careful, okay? But they feel better than they have in a year. And they felt really, really bad. I think I told you earlier in this video, I could not lie down with my feet up because the weight of my own lower leg on my heel, even in a shoe, right? Even in squishy shoes. I was wearing a pretty cushioned Ultra for a while. Didn't matter, because you still ultimately weigh you still put pressure on it, whether your pressure is here or once you've squished into the shoe. It's the pressure that was hurting. And I finally made little donuts like in the heel to try to have relief underneath that bruised part. And yeah, it helped a little, but like it's not sustainable, and it doesn't help enough, right? It's just then you end up walking weird anyway. So anyway, that is just to say, hopefully this will be a real solution. I could honestly cry. Hopefully this will be a real solution, and then I'll have good news for you. And actually, saying that, hopefully this will be good news for a lot of people, because like that study from 2016 that I mentioned a long time ago now, this was going to be just a quick video. This could be a reason that a lot of people have chronic tendon pain, and we don't know it, right? Just honestly, like, I learned about, I don't mean to throw anyone under the bus, but I've learned about foot collapse and chronic foot pain as a result of ligament laxity. That's the term, ligament laxity, age-related ligament laxity. I've learned about that, but no one ever was like, yeah, so to deal with it, address the hormones. And maybe that should have just been intuitive and I should have figured that out, but I feel like if I didn't realize, oh, you can do something about it. Oh, it's not age related, it's hormone suppression related, right? It's hormone diminishment. It's not wear and tear, right, per se, because like, oh, you lived a certain chronology and so now it's starting. No, because of the reduction in hormones. And so you can do something about that, right? Everyone makes their own medical choices, and you have your own life and your own risk factors. As good research, we will talk further. But yeah, hopefully good news soon for me and a lot of people.